So with Blake Snell signing with the Dodgers for a lot of money, I decided I wanted to come up with predictions for the rest of the top free agent contracts out there. But before I get to that, I want to go over how I came up with those predictions. So according to Fangraphs, the total value for qualified players this year was $4,558 million. The total wins above replacement was right around 570. So if you divide that, you get an average of about $8 million per win. So a simple example, if a player finished with a 10 wins above replacement, that would be worth $80 million. So if we take a look at Aaron Judge, he had an 11.2 wins above replacement. That was worth $89.7 million. So I'm going to factor in that. I'm going to factor in what I think the projections are for the players moving forward, what I think they end up getting in years. And with that, I'm going to come up with a good ballpark number for what I think each player ends up getting. So with that said, let's get to it. Let's start this off with Jerickson Profar. Now, this one is pretty interesting because while Profar did have a very good season this past year, hitting .280 with a .380 on base, a .459 slugging, a .139 WRC plus, 24 homers, a 4.3 F4 overall, this was a career year for him at 31 years old after a lot of ups and downs over the last few years. Not too much of a track record, and he's going into his age 32 season. I think because of the age and the lack of the track record, I don't see teams giving him anything over 3 years unless a team out there gets desperate for a left-handed bat. I'll stick with 3 years for the contract, and since he just put up a 4 wins above replacement this past season, I think it's safe to say, combined with the lack of the track record, a 3 wins above replacement season on average is fair over the next couple of years, which would be worth $48 million. Factor in some regression of the deal in his age 34 season, and I could see a total contract of 3 years and $64 million. Moving on to a guy who hit 44 bombs this past year, Anthony Santander. Now, he's not going to give you much defense or speed, but this guy is going to give you good pop in the middle of the order, which a lot of teams out there could use. This past year, he finished with a 3.3 Fangraph wins above replacement, but because he chases a lot, ranking in the 16th percentile last year, with his ex-WOBA and expected batting average not looking amazing, I think we do end up seeing some regression at some point. When it comes to a contract length, I think 4 years is fair, considering Lourdes Gurriel Jr. got a 3-year deal recently at 30 years old, while someone like George Springer, who had much better numbers at the time, getting a 6-year deal. I think somewhere in the middle of that works, and with regression in mind, I say he gets a 4-year deal. I think it's safe to say, though, we see some good power over the next couple of years, and I think he can average a 3.0 F4 over that time. After that, though, I do think he'll have some dippage in the numbers, and I think he'll average a 2 F4 over that time. Overall, I think he gets a solid contract, 4 years, $80 million. Moving on to another big bat on the market, Teoscar Hernandez. Last offseason, Teoscar was looking for a multi-year deal, but because he had regressed the 2 years prior to that, teams were a little weary of committing to him long-term. Instead, he signed a 1-year bet-on-himself deal with the Dodgers, ended up having a great year, won the Home Run Derby, helped them win a World Series, and had his best year since 2021. Hit .272 with a .339 on base, a .501 slugging, a .134 WRC plus, 33 homers, a 3.5 F4 overall. This time, I think he does get himself that multi-year deal, but I'm still not going to ignore a couple of things like the regression the last couple of years prior to this year, as well as still a pretty high strikeout rate this year, right around 29%, and a middle-of-the-road walk rate. Now, despite that, the bat-to-ball metrics still look very strong this year, and he even gives you a little bit of speed on the base paths and in the field, so I think he's in good shape moving forward. Now, when it comes to the years on the deal, at 32 years old, I don't think he gets more than 4 years, which would put him through his age 35 season. But when it comes to the numbers moving forward, I think it's safe to say he has another 3.5 F4 season in him, which would be worth $28 million. I'll factor in a little regression in year 2 of the deal for a 3.0 F4 for $24 million, and a bit more regression for the final 2 years at an average of 2 wins above replacement for each season, worth a total of $32 million. I also think there's going to be some competition competition for him because he is an impact bat in the short term. So I could see teams willing to go up a notch in the bidding for him. So with that in mind, I'll factor in about a 5% bump when it comes to the bidding. So I'll give a total of 4 years and $88 million. Let's get to a picture, shall we? And Jack Flaherty is an interesting case. Kind of like Jerickson Profar I talked about earlier. The track record is spotty with Flaherty, considering he had a great season in 2019, but he's been plagued with injuries since then. However, he did start getting back on track last year, tossing over 140 innings, and this year he put it together with the Tigers and the Dodgers, posted a 3.17 ERA, 3.48 on the FIP, over 162 innings, 28 starts, had a good strikeout rate, just under 11 strikeouts per nine. Now, I think the length of the contract is going to be interesting here. He's still only 29 years old, but because of the injury history, along with a reported bad back at the trade deadline this year that ended up not being an issue, I wonder how far teams would be willing to go with the years. I could see a couple of different structures here. Since a lot of teams do need pitching, I could see there not being an issue, but I also wonder if teams out there agree on not wanting to give out a flat deal with no options. I think in the end, because of the injury history, no team will go more than 5 years, but I could see a 4-year deal with an option. But let's go over the money. I think since he's in his prime, coming off a 3.2 F4 season, I think building upon that and averaging a 3.5 F4 over the next few years is a safe bet, worth a total of $84 million. After that, I'll go with a bit of regression, which could involve some injuries, averaging a 2.5 F4 over the next 2 seasons, worth a total of $40 million. Over 5 years, that would be a total of $124 million. For this structure, though, I'm going to go 4 years at $105 million with a $20 million club option for a 5th year, putting the potential total value of the deal at 5 years and $125 million. Getting back to a few bats, and up next, we got Pete Alonso. This is an interesting one because while Alonso remains one of the premium power hitters in the game, his numbers have dipped a little bit over the last few years, and there are question marks defensively at first base. Nonetheless, he still had a good season this past year, hitting 34 homers with a 122 WRC+. Now, coming up with a contract here is interesting because his total wins above replacement has declined over the last 3 years. He's not a great defender at first base with some DH risk, and he's going into his age 30 season. Now, over the last 3 seasons, he's averaged right around a 3 wins above replacement despite the decline, and he ranks near the top in home runs over that time. Now, I'll go with him averaging a 3 wins above replacement over the first few seasons, worth a total of $72 million. After that, though, I think it's fair to factor in some decline, but not much since most of his value is going to be coming from the bat. I'll go with a slight dip in the last couple of seasons, averaging a 2.5 WAR worth $40 million total. Overall, that's $112 million. Factor in a bit of bidding, and I'll go with a 5-year, $115 million deal. I think Willy Adames is a very underrated free agent this year, and I think people could be underestimating the money he ends up getting. Now, despite a dip in the defense this year, he's coming off a strong season offensively, hitting .251, the .331 on base, a .462 slugging, a .119 WRC+, 32 homers, a 4.8 F4 overall. Now, sure, the defense did regress, but he has a strong track record defensively, and he has versatility to move to either third or second base. Now, over the last 4 seasons, he's averaged an F4 right around 4, but since I see him moving off of a high-value position at shortstop, I could see that coming down a bit over time. When it comes to the years of a contract, I'll go with 6 years, since that's what Trevor Story got when he signed at 29 years old. Over the first 2 years of the deal, I think he stays right around that 4 wins above replacement mark, even if he moves off shortstop, because he's still in his prime, the offense still looks great, and he has a good arm and range, so I think the defense will still hold strong wherever he plays. Now, that would be a total of $64 million. Over the next 2 years in the deal, I'll factor in some regression, half WAR over that time, a total of $56 million. In the final 2 years of the deal, I'll factor in a bit more regression, averaging a 3 WAR. That would give us a total of 6 years and $168 million. Moving on to Alex Bregman, one of the most consistent third basemen in the game. He's been very steady over the last few seasons, averaging right around a 4.5 WAR over that time, and he's coming off a good season in which he slugged .453 with a 118 WRC+, 26 homers, played great defense at third base. Now, when it comes to the batted ball metrics, they were pretty middle of the road this season, and Minute Maid Park definitely helped him out a bit with the short portion left. Along with going into his age 31 season, I think we'll end up seeing a bit more regression regression, especially if he doesn't go to a hitter-friendly park. Now, assuming he stays in a hitter-friendly park, I think it's a safe bet he'll stay right around that 4 wins above replacement mark over the next couple of years. Now, as for the contract length, I'll go with a contract of 6 years, which is what Scott Boras got for Matt Chapman this year when he got his extension with the Giants, who was also 31 years old at the time of the signing. As for the money, like I said earlier, I think we see a couple of more seasons right around a 4 WAR with a dip over the next 4 seasons. Factor in a little bit of competition for his services, and I'll go with 6 years and $160 million, an AAV of around $26.5 million per season. On to one of the top pitchers on the market, Max Fried. Fried has been solid over the last several years, helping the Braves win a World Series in 2021 and averaging right around a 3.5 WAR per season since then, which did include an injury-plagued year back in 2023 due to some arm issues. Now, he's coming off a very good season this year. 29 starts, 174 and a third innings pitched, ERA at a 3.25, FIP at a 3.33, a 3.4 FWAR overall. Now, when it comes to a contract length, I think he's going to get at least 5 years going through his age 35 season, but considering the success he's had, I would imagine he would want to try and get that 6th year. Now, with the arm injury he had back in 23, I wonder if teams would want to do a 6th year as a club option. With the teams wanting pitching, though, I could see a team caving and giving him that 6th year. Since he's averaged a 3.5 wins above replacement the last few years, I think he will be able to keep that up over the first couple of seasons of the deal, which would be worth a total of $56 million. Now, because he's more of a ground ball, weak contact pitcher, I do think it's safe to say we will see a smidge of regression over the course of the deal, but I don't think much since he hasn't necessarily relied on stuff too much. Over the final 4 years of the deal, I'll go with him averaging a 3 wins above replacement, which would be worth a total of $96 million. Overall, that would give us a total of 6 years and $152 million in AAV, just over $25 million per year. Let's move on to the top pitcher on the market, Corbin Burnes. Burnes has been one of the best pitchers in baseball for a while now, and I don't see any signs of him slowing down anytime soon. This guy has been an absolute workhorse, pitching at least 190 innings over the last few years, averaging an ERA of 3.08, a FIP of 3.49, 9.5 strikeouts per 9, and right around a 12 wins above replacement over that time, an average of 4 per season. At 30 years old, I think it's a safe bet that he keeps that up over the next few seasons, but before diving into the dollars more, I think he ends up getting a 7-year deal similar to Aaron Nola last offseason, another workhorse pitcher who also signed at 30 years old. Now, for the first few years of the deal, I say he averages a 4 wins above replacement per season, which would be worth $96 million. Over the next 3 seasons, I say he dips a smidge to an average of 3.5 WAR per season, worth $84 million total, and a little more in the final year at 3 wins, worth $24 million. Now, I do think there will be some serious competition, especially for a top pitcher like Burnes, and I think you could even see around a 10% bump added to get a deal done. In the end, I'll go with 7 years and $220 million. Now for the grand finale, let's talk about one of the best free agents of all time, Juan Soto. He's coming off a career year at only 25 years old, putting up an 8.1 FWAR overall, a 180 WRC plus, hitting 288 with a 419 on base, a 469 slugging, 41 home runs. As of right now, he's on pace to finish as one of the best players of all time as he ranks 17th all time in FWAR among players through their age 25 season. Offensively, he has the 8th highest offense on Fangraphs at this point in his career. So yeah, he's going to get an all-time contract. I think for the length of the deal, I say he ends up getting 14 years, which would put him through his age 39 season. What everyone wants to know, though, is the final dollar amount, so let's dive into that. First off, he's going into his prime at age 26, and considering he's averaged a 7 wins above replacement the last 2 seasons, I think it's safe to say he can average even a bit more than that through his age 32 season, an age in which we just saw Aaron Judge win an MVP. The difference with Soto, though, as good as the bat is, his defense is a bit of a question mark, so we do need to keep that in mind. Nonetheless, many greats have not exactly had great defense, but still excelled with the bat through their careers. So for the first 7 years of the deal, I say he averages a 7 wins above replacement. After age 32, I think that's when we'll start to see a dip in the numbers. At ages 33 to 34, I say he averages a 6 F4 over that time, which is worth $96 million. Ages 35 to 36, I say he averages a 5 WAR worth $80 million. Age 37 to 38, I say he averages 4 wins per season worth $64 million. And in the final year, with 3 wins being worth $24 million. In total, I have a contract of 14 years and $656 million, an AAV of $46.8 million per season, which would be the highest AAV of all time. But everyone, those are my thoughts. Tell me your thoughts down below. What contracts do you think these players are going to end up getting this offseason? Let me know. But everyone, that's all I got for this video. If you can on the way out, hit that like button for me, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.